All right, thank you very much for staying with us. DA leader John Steenhuisen has urged South Africans to interrogate the leaders of their preferred parties on whether they support a radical economic transformation or if they want what the DA leader refers to as reformers. Steenhuisen has warned that RET is wrong for the country and will lead to the collapse of South Africa's economy. The DA says it's gunning to lower support for the ANC below 50% in the upcoming local government elections scheduled for later this year. So the DA leader was speaking during a discussion on the party's social media platforms, where he was joined by federal chairperson Helen Zille. So earlier this week, Steenhuisen told the SABC that the DA is willing to cooperate with progressive individuals within parties across the political spectrum, including the ANC. He has, however, denied that this means the DA will go into coalition with the governing party as it had been reported. I want to talk a bit about this now. And all right, we'll start with this up sound first before we get to that.
The primary focus that we all have to have in South Africa is to bring the ANC below 50%. We've got to get them out of power, to lose power so that that glue of patronage doesn't hold them together anymore, and it will give the reformers space to be able to strike out in a new direction. That is absolutely, and that is why our mission in this next local government election is to bring the ANC under 50% in as many municipalities as possible, so that we can start to open up that high stakes poker game about how we act in the best interests of this municipality, this town, this city, this province, and ultimately the country.
So I want to talk a bit about that and coalitions. Let's bring in now Dr. Ntsikelelo Benjamin Breakfast, a lecturer in politics at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. A very good evening to you, Doc. Thanks indeed for your time. So I want to start by those utterances first that were made by John Steenhuisen. So according to that report filed by one of the SABC's reporters, Mr. Steenhuisen told the SABC that the DA is willing to cooperate with progressive individuals within parties across the political spectrum, including the ANC. However, he denies that this means that the DA will go into a coalition with the governing party, as has been reported. What does this even mean?
Well, I think the 2016 local government elections illustrated that one-party dominance is a thing of the past. In as much as I do anticipate that the ANC, for instance, might be dealt with a blow at local government level because it has not been doing well. I am taken aback, though, by the statements made by the leader of the DA, simply because the ideological proximity of the ANC is close to the EFF as opposed to the DA. The ANC, from my standpoint, is not just a centrist organization. It is a center-left organization. That's how it was also described in 1969 at a Morogoro conference. So it will be very interesting now for a center-left organization to work side by side with an organization that is to the right of the ideological spectrum.
But I mean, is this where, you know, the political spectrum in South Africa is headed? Even though it seems, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that coalitions in the past have not really worked. I mean, the ANC and the Democratic Alliance have been on a downward spiral in terms of electoral support, both of them.
Yeah, of course, because the reason why coalition politics have failed in this country is simply with the exception of what had happened in Cape Town.
Yes.
So, yes, yeah. So the reason why they are falling short is simply because the political elite have a tendency to rush into joining forces without developing a conflict management mechanism in order to deal with their internal contradictions. because they see politics as a win-lose situation. They see politics as a zero-sum game, as opposed to a win-win situation. The other reason why coalition politics have fallen short is simply because, as you pointed out earlier on, South Africa doesn't have a good history of coalition politics. The first power sharing arrangement that we had in this country was in the early 1900s. To be more specific, I think in 1924 between the National Party and the Labour Party. The second one was in 1933. And then after that, the National Party dominated, the political landscape. And then the ANC rose to prominence and became hegemonic until the ushering in of coalition politics in the early 2000s. So the notion of power sharing is foreign to us. It comes from Europe, in particular in Holland, but we have had that in post-colonial states on the African continent.
But I think, looking at power sharing or coalitions, does it even mean more accountability? Does it even mean better public service? Or is it just political bickering at the expense of the people, where there's more political bickering than actual services now that would be delivered, whether it's at a municipal level or whichever level those services should be coming from?
Well, on the one hand, I think there are strong points of coalition politics. Like, for instance, the beauty of coalition politics is that if you have power sharing, you are able to consult across the board, as opposed to having one political party that will.
There have to be compromises.
Yes, and that, Griselda, does deepen democracy. The other issue, though, that is problematic with coalition politics is that if you have coalition politics and you have a deadlock, it means that you can't render services. For instance, if you have a budget and the budget cannot be passed, it means that you cannot promote development because the budget is linked at local government level. Right. To the ITP. So there are good things, there are also bad things about coalition politics.
I wish we had more time to talk about this, but I really do appreciate your time, Dr. Ntsikelelo Benjamin Breakfast, a lecturer in politics at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on The Full View on the SABC News Channel. With that, let's take a recap.